According to Webster.com, a game is a structured type of play usually undertaken for entertainment or fun, but can also have an educational component. Welcome back to another episode of Remnant Stew. I'm Leah.
I'm Phil.
And I'm Steve. Today we're going to unfold the game board and set up the pieces. This is Season 5, Episode 10, Games.
If you have an appetite for the strange and bizarre, then pull up a chair and grab a spoon for another intriguing serving of Remnant Stew. Remnant Stew is gluten-free, organic, made from all natural, free-range ingredients, and guaranteed to provide the recommended daily serving of curiosity.
Now, continuing from Webster.com, games are an integral part of all cultures and are one of the oldest forms of human social interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Common features of games include uncertainty of outcome, agreed upon rules.
Uncertainty of outcome? That's a thing? I know I win.
My favorite, competition, and personal enjoyment. In today's episode, we are going to open up the game box and pass out the play money as we talk about some interesting games, mostly board games, but we might throw a card game in there along the way. So what are some favorite games of y'all's? I know both of you like to play
when we
games.
have our Remnant Stew parties, Mexican Train Dominoes
right.
seems to be the most popular.
Was that just last Christmas?
Yeah, because the Christmas before we tried that crazy game that we couldn't figure out the
that
rules
escape
to.
box thing that just was way too hard.
And finally, Leah's
confusion.
husband, Paul, saved us all by saying, I got a good case of I don't care. We couldn't figure out the rules of this crazy game.
But Mexican Train. So Phil brought Mexican Train, and we've been playing it ever since.
Right.
You're welcome.
So we love that game. And one of my new favorites is Ticket to Ride.
Yep,
have y'all seen that?
Yep,
I love that game.
We've got that one too. Brother and sister-in-law loved that game, and so they brought that one.
Now, I've learned a new game
Got hooked up a little
recently. A new game, some friends of ours introduced us to Sequence. Have you ever heard of Sequence?
I have it,
I
haven't played it yet. Isn't it? Doesn't it deal with cards?
Yeah, it does
like
deal with cards.
Board game, but
it's a board game with cards.
Okay, we haven't played it
So if you like
yet.
board games and you like card games, you'll love this one.
And then have y'all ever played Guillotine?
Guillotine.
Guillotine?
For real, or are we just talking?
It's a
one-time only, folks.
It's a really cool game. It's a card game, and it's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek.
So you have to speak in French?
No, you don't have to speak in French. but you line up nobles on their way to the guillotine.
Wow.
And you collect their heads.
All right.
It is a fun game. It's a really cute, really cute.
Sounds like a medieval good time there.
Game. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Carcassonne. Settlers of Catan.
Settlers of Catan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carcassonne is a lot like that, but it doesn't take forever.
What are you saying? That Settlers of Catan is a long game?
It is a long game, and I'm not a fan of it because of that.
It is one. It's not like a chess game where you can just take a picture of it and come back later.
Stop it
and come back weeks or months later. This one, because it takes so much table space.
It takes so much table space, and so does Carcassonne. But anyway, I like Carcassonne. Bananagrams. Anybody?
Bananagram. I've not heard of that one.
I'm sorry. The thoughts in my head now are somebody comes to the door.
It's like
Bananagram.
It's tiles like Scrabble in a zippered pouch that's shaped like a banana.
Right.
And it's a fast-paced game where you just make anagrams of all your tiles, and the person that runs out of tiles fastest. And
I see.
I just got to say, I rule. So
really, so weird.
Wow.
Sam hasn't played it yet, has he?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and he won't play it with me.
Now, with my in-laws, I used to play a game called Spite and Malice. It was a really fun card game.
That
Spite and Malice.
That sounds like something.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of Sam, he's not in the studio today, so I'm going to talk about him.
He doesn't mind.
There's some games that he and I cannot play together.
We're violence?
Yes, and for a long time I wouldn't play card games with him because he gets all fancy with the dealing. Like there's certain rules about dealing, and he thinks I'm just anal about it. But you deal a certain way.
Now he's going to hear this episode and he's going to go find an oddity du jour to talk about this.
Right.
Probably.
Boy, my mother has a problem with card dealing. Now, have you ever gotten into a game of spoons?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that can
we
get
play
violent.
that. We play that at Christmas and Thanksgiving
Yeah,
with our
that can
family.
get violent.
I've ruined tablecloths.
Yeah, a lot of bent spoons around the house, you know.
Yes, that's what it is. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well let's start out. I want to tell you about a really cool event in the tabletop gaming community that happens every year. And let me first tell you how I discovered it. In 2003, I was a stay-at-home mom of 3 little boys, aged 2, 3, and 5, and life was kind of messy.
I guess.
And stinky and sticky and
They're
and
boys. Yeah.
and I love being a mom, but you get bogged down in the never-ending chores and being needed all the time.
Right.
Anyway, so I found this board game convention that was happening in Houston that year.
Right.
And I got super excited about it. I was like, I could do this. It could be my personal little getaway. And so when I went to register, I realized it was a member only kind of
members
thing.
Game. Okay.
And so it was a Mensa member only convention.
Wow.
And I had no clue what Mensa was. So I found out.
Explain that to the
if you have to ask, then
yeah, if you have to ask, well,
maybe we're not going to explain it to you, folks. Go look it up. Google's your friend.
Okay, according to Wikipedia, our favorite source, it's a high IQ society. It's one of the oldest in the world, and it's a nonprofit organization open to people that score in the 98th percentile or higher on a standardized, supervised IQ or approved intelligence test. And so on a whim, I decided to take the test.
Are you now? I'm going to let it happen. It's going to happen naturally. Folks.
What are you going to say, Phil?
I'm not going to make it.
Well, I didn't think I was going to make it.
Yeah.
I really didn't, and I was super surprised when I did.
Oh, good for you. We're not surprised.
Well, I was surprised, but I was really excited to be able to go to this convention, and then. Life happens. You have all these kids at home, and life happens. And I ended up going. I'll just go next year.
Right.
How many years?
I did. Well, here's the deal. It wasn't a local Mensa group convention. It was the
national.
The national. I was going to say universal. It was the universal one
People
in
beaming
Houston.
in from other planets for this one. Yeah. No.
Come on, beam me down.
But it was the national. It's a national convention that they've been having for years, and it's in different cities.
Right.
Yeah,
so I didn't get to go. So I dropped out of Mensa after that.
Oh, you're a Mensa dropout.
I'm a Mensa dropout.
Wow.
But all
you were
of
too
that.
good for them anyway.
That's right. That's right. All of that to say, though, that even though I'm not an active member, I really love the fact that they do this.
Right.
And every year they play and then they vote. I think it's a 2-day event that it's just gameplay.
Right.
And then they vote. And at the end of the convention, there's 5 games that earn the coveted Mensa Select seal.
Ooh.
And so you can, if you're interested in perusing this, so a lot of my favorite games are on that list.
I see. Okay.
And so if you're interested in looking at the list of Mensa Select games, you can go to Mensa Mind Games, which is the name of the convention.
Right.
Then navigate to Mensa Select Games, where they have a list of the 5 winning games for every single year that they've had the convention. And the list goes back 34 years to 1990.
Wow. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So check it out.
That's nice. Well, I'm impressed, Leah, having you qualified for Mensa with 3 little boys at home.
It was a fluke, I'm sure.
Well, in my opinion, games are perfectly suited for grandparents and grandchildren. Both have considerable free time to spend, and games can be wonderful bonding activities that connect the generations. Okay, have you seen the Young Sheldon episode where he's playing games with his Meemaw?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
I think she cheats and he catches her, and but it's funny. Some of my earliest childhood memories are of playing games at my grandmother's kitchen table. Mm-hmm. She started me off easy with Parcheesi, Go Fish, and Crazy Eights. I loved Crazy Eights. But then as I matured, I graduated to cribbage. I still love cribbage. It's one of my favorite games today.
See, that's another game. I have the board, and I've never played it.
Oh, we'll have to, time we have a party.
Next Remnant Stew party, we'll do that.
Canasta is another good game. And then Scrabble.
That's one of my favorites.
Right. We still own her kitchen table at our cabin out in West Texas, and I've enjoyed introducing some of my own grandchildren to those same games. So, speaking of Mensa, that was a Young Sheldon connection there. Well, now let's talk about the history of some games. Are you familiar with a game called Mancala?
Yeah, I am. Have you ever heard of it, Phil?
I have not heard of it until you guys were texting about it today.
Right.
It's like, wait, what?
I've seen it for sale in stores, and some historians believe that Mancala is the oldest game in the world based on an archaeological evidence found in Jordan, in the country of Jordan, that dates to around 6000 BC.
I didn't know that. I thought it originated in Africa. That's interesting.
Well, it's close
and
to
I
Africa.
think maybe it was
Middle
played
East. Middle East, probably spread to Africa. The game might have been played by the ancient Nabateans and appears to have been an early version of the modern Mancala game. The Mancala board is made up of 2 rows of 6 small holes or pits, and 2 larger holes are Mancalas, 1 at each end of the board. Seeds or petals are dropped into the holes and then taken out and captured by the players. Now, another ancient game was known as Knucklebones. This was played by children in the Roman Empire. The game
I have that one too.
Oh, you
no,
do?
no, I don't.
I was wondering where you got it because the game utilizes the ankle bones of a sheep. Not while the sheep is still using them, after the sheep is done with them. It was a game of dexterity, and it's actually the predecessor to the game of jacks.
Okay, now I used to play jacks when I was a
Right.
girl.
Now, a rubber ball wasn't available to the ancient children, but the bones were thrown up and caught and manipulated in various manners. Now, we're familiar with this. In 1922, the famous Egyptologist Howard Carter announced the incredible discovery of King Tut's tomb. Among the fabulous treasures located in the tomb were 3 full-size sets and a small travel set of a popular game called, is it Senet? I've heard it pronounced Senet, S-E-N-E-T.
Well, yes. Okay, so I do have this game, or a version,
modern version of it, yeah.
version of this game, and it's called Senet.
Senet, okay.
S-E-N-A-T.
Okay.
But I think it's based on Senet.
Right, I think you're right. Okay. Senet, I've heard it Senet or Senet. There was also a painting of King Tut playing Senet with his wife. The game's full ancient name was Senet Net Hab, which means game of passing through. This is because the aim of the game is to get from one end of the board to the other. It appears that the game was enjoyed by ordinary people as well as royalty. The only difference was the cost of the materials. One of the Senet games in Tut's tomb was constructed of ivory and expensive ebony wood. There's evidence of Egyptians playing this game as early as 2600 BC.
Oh, wow.
Initially, it was just a fun game to play, but by the 1200s BC, it took on a special religious significance. The ancient Egyptians thought that the pieces journeying across the board was like the soul passing through the underworld to get to the afterlife. According to, I think it's
Otega.
Otega Museum, Otega Museum NZ, which I think is New Zealand. The rules of the game have not survived, and we only can make educated guesses as to how Senet was played. But those are some ancient games for you.
Well, and speaking of ancient games, I didn't write anything in here on it, but there are some Viking games that have survived, and one of my favorite is Nine Man's Morris.
My name is Morris.
My name is Morris. Nine Men's Morris.
No.
No, we're going to leave it in.
9 Man Morris. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Nine Men's Morris, because you have 9 game pieces and your opponent has 9 game pieces. Anyway, so let's travel to India in the 7th century AD to learn about an interesting game called Chaturanga.
Chaturanga, yeah, that's right.
The word Chaturanga comes from the Sanskrit language. It means battle formations.
Right.
It's uncertain how this game developed, but it was mentioned in prominent Indian manuscripts as being quite popular in northwest India, as well as Pakistan and Afghanistan. It was played on a 64 square board. Different pieces had different powers, and victory was based on capturing one main piece. Now, does this sound familiar?
I think so.
A little bit like chess.
Yeah.
It might be that Chaturanga is believed to be the predecessor of chess, which is a game that I really have never really gotten into.
Honestly, I haven't either, to be honest with you.
Oh, I've played that one.
Phil is our chess guy.
According to Britannica.com, Chaturanga spread from India to the east, north, and west. As the game spread, it took on different regional variations. Carried east by Buddhist pilgrims and the Silk Road traders, the game had spread to China, Korea, and Japan by the 11th century.
Okay.
The Chinese version includes a river running through the sections of the board, making it more difficult to capture the king.
Well, that's more complicated.
Right.
Not a river
Yeah,
right
let's see
through
those
there.
world chess masters get a load of that.
Yeah.
To the north and west of India, the game spread through Persia and into the Arabian Empire. There's a written record of the game being played in the 10th century in Baghdad. Muslim travelers carried the game to the Mediterranean region, including northern Africa, Italy, and Spain.
Mm-hmm.
From there, Slavic travelers brought the game to Eastern Europe and Russia. So it just spread all over. The Vikings then spread it to Iceland and England. It is believed that the Vikings are responsible for a very old set of chess pieces, which was found in Scotland in 1831. They were made from walrus tusks, so ebony. Ivory, that would be ivory, and are believed to date from the 11th or 12th century.
That's some old chess pieces.
That's right.
That is impressive.
Chess increased in popularity through the Middle Ages. Peter the Great of Russia had a special leather travel set made so that he could carry it with him while engaged in military endeavors. As the game was a favorite of many royal rulers, including kings Henry I and Henry II of England, Alphonse of Spain, and Ivan the Terrible of Russia, chess became known as the Game of Kings.
Game of Kings, okay.
Oddly, King Louis IX of France hated the game and made chess illegal in that country during his reign.
No chess here. I hate it.
The rules for chess gradually evolved over time, but had become well established by the 1700s. The first known international chess competition occurred in 1834 between teams of French and British players. The French won, so I guess they had gotten over Louis IX by then. An international invitational event was held in London in 1851 and was won by a German named Carl Anderson. A few years later, the American Chess Congress was established in New York, which fueled a chess craze in the U.S. The first American winner was Paul, is it Morphy? Or do you think it was, okay, Morphy of New Orleans. In 1858, he defeated Carl Anderson, the European champion, and was recognized as unofficial world champion.
Mm-hmm.
Just 100 years ago, in 1924, members of 15 nations met in Paris to establish the first permanent international chess federation.
Yeah.
The
But
organization,
you gotta keep those rules standard.
the organization became known as FIDE.
I think it's FIDE, yeah.
Yeah, do they? I wonder if they pronounce it that way, but it's FIDE.
FIDE, I believe it's FIDE, yeah.
Which was a French acronym of Fédération
Fédération
Internationale
Internationale de Chess.
Fide.
FIDE. Yeah, probably FIDE. You're right.
Okay.
It's probably pronounced that way. Happy anniversary, FIDE. Today, they are responsible for overseeing chess competitions worldwide.
Oh.
And I put in here chess song. I thought about, do y'all remember that One Night in Bangkok song?
I remember the song, yeah.
It was such a corny song in the 80s. Y'all look it up. Hey, you. Yes, you there listening to this podcast. Have we told you lately just how much we appreciate you? Well, we do. So much. And so can we ask for a favor?
It's an easy favor. If you would, please take just a couple of minutes to give us a review on whatever app you're listening on. It may not seem like a lot, but it really does make a difference.
Yeah, it's all about algorithms, altruisms, Pythagorean theorems, all that techie stuff, which boils down to the fact that it helps other listeners and sponsors find us. So if you enjoy Remnant Stew, it would mean a lot if you took the time to give us a review. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Right. Well, for our next section, I'm going to take a little inspiration from one of our mentors here at Remnant Stew, which would be Mike Rowe and his great
Oh, yeah.
That's the Way I Heard It podcast, where he describes a situation or a person, but doesn't tell you who it is until the end and lets you figure it out. So let's see if you can figure out the person that I'm talking about here. If you grew up playing board games like I did, then perhaps you can guess the name of the person I'm going to describe to you. Our gentleman was born in Maine in 1836 to working-class parents. He graduated from high school in 1854, and then he moved to Springfield, Massachusetts, where he found work as a draftsman. He studied lithography along the way, and in 1860 he set up the first color lithograph shop in Springfield. He found success by printing color images of the Republican presidential candidate, Abraham Lincoln. But then Lincoln grew out his beard, and customers stopped purchasing his beardless Lincoln images. In fact, some even asked for their money back. That seems kind of harsh, doesn't it? One night, a friend named George Tapley invited him to dinner at his home. After dinner, they played a board game that Tapley had purchased on a recent trip to Europe. This sparked an idea in our gentleman to create a truly American game. The next day, he went back to his shop to begin experimenting with ideas. Within a week, he had developed what he called the checkered game of life.
Okay. I know where
This game involved people moving their tokens through life situations by spinning a dial, because you see, dice were still frowned upon in New England at that time. The spaces where they landed will require decisions that would impact what would happen to them. The goal was to achieve, quote, happy old age, rather than, quote, ruined. He believed that this game would provide both factual instruction and moral advice to young people. The checkered game of life proved immensely popular immediately, and by the end of that year, in 1860, he had sold 45,000 copies.
Oh, wow.
The following year, when the Civil War began, our gentleman thought about suspending his game production, but then he changed his mind as he watched bored soldiers who were stationed nearby. So instead, he decided to produce travel-size kits containing game pieces that the soldiers could take with them. These included checkers, chess, backgammon, and the checkered game of life. The travel kits proved immensely popular with the soldiers and other Americans too. Our gentleman and the company that he started became a household name. Now, if you haven't guessed it yet, we're talking about none other than Milton Bradley. Yeah, he was a real person, Milton Bradley.
Yeah,
the checkered game
piece.
Go ahead.
Not the game piece.
The checkered game of life, or just life as it's known today, became America's first popular parlor game. In addition to being America's first major game manufacturer, Milton Bradley, the man, also became a strong advocate for kindergarten. He attended a lecture in 1869 by an early education pioneer named Elizabeth Peabody, who touted the benefits of early education for children. In addition to producing board games, the Milton Bradley Company also began producing educational materials for children, including colored paints, paper, toy money, multiplication sticks, oh, there's a good one everybody still needs today, puzzles, I love puzzles, and movable clock dials, as well as learning games.
That's interesting.
That is
I didn't
awesome.
know he did all of that.
Right. When Milton Bradley, the man, died in 1911, the Milton Bradley Company was worth more than $3 million. Now, that would be equal to about $600 million today.
Goodness.
So a very successful venture. And the management of the company passed down to his old friend's son, George Tapley. That's the guy who invited him over to play the game the first night. His son then became the manager of the company. The company saw harder times in the 1930s as the Great Depression severely limited the public's ability to spend money on a board game. But with the outbreak of World War II, Milton Bradley again marketed travel-sized game kits to soldiers and sailors going off to war. After World War II, with the advent of the baby boom, the nation was ripe for a new era of board games. Introduced in 1949, Candyland became the hottest new must-have for parents raising the new generation of children. I can remember playing Candyland when I was very little.
We have that game.
I think I actually remember that's how I learned colors from looking at the cards on that game. The next 35 years after 1949 have been called the Golden Age of board games. Now, here are just a partial list of Milton Bradley best-selling games from that era. See how many of these you have played. Yahtzee.
Yep.
Concentration. Now, this was based on a popular TV game show in the 50s and 60s, and it was a matching game.
Yep.
And then as you matched pieces,
I want to say I have.
As you matched pieces, it would reveal parts of a puzzle, and you had to guess. In order to win the prizes, you had to guess what the puzzle was back there.
Yeah, of the whole picture.
Yeah, the whole picture.
Okay.
And so, I had one of that when I was a little kid, and it was fun. Mousetrap.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that took forever to set
That was a
up.
lot.
And was it a game?
It was kind of like a Rube Goldberg machine game,
It
too.
was. It was really
was a
cool.
game.
Marbles.
Yes.
Yeah. Operation.
Yes, we still have that.
Seemed like we had one of our trivia questions once was the name of the guy on the board, something like that.
That's right.
I think in my family it was who could zap him.
Yeah. Oh, no. When I was a teenager, this was the one you really wanted to get going at a party. Twister.
Yes.
Yes.
How about the game Trouble? Have you ever played Trouble?
Yes,
I
of
do
course.
remember that one. I don't remember playing
And
it.
then there was one Kerplunk. I think I remember seeing it advertised, but I don't
think
think I
that's a
played that.
commercial.
Yeah, I didn't have that one.
Of course, Battleship,
Oh, I've had a
Of
few
course.
versions of that one.
Connect 4,
Yeah.
That was popular.
I roll at that game.
Now here's another TV game show, Family Feud.
Now I know the game show, but I haven't.
I think they had a home version of that game. A lot of game shows in those days had home versions you could play. Hungry Hungry Hippos.
Yes.
And then Simon, that was the electronic one that you had to repeat the color pattern.
Oh yeah, that's right. It was an electronic game. I remember.
Right.
Yes. I had that
Guess
too.
Who? And then Jenga, of course, with the blocks.
Yeah.
And of course, we can't forget the original Game of Life, which continues to be a big seller to this day.
Yep.
In 2006, Milton Bradley, the man, was posthumously inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame. In 2009, Milton Bradley was acquired by the Hasbro Toy Company, but their games are still being produced under the Hasbro name. The vast number of Milton Bradley board games still available proves the timeless quality to the gentleman and his company's creative vision. So, way to go, Milton Bradley.
Right.
And if you're looking for a sponsor,
Hasbro, yeah.
come on.
And now for something completely off topic and off kilter. Brace yourself for the oddity du jour.
One of the things that I enjoy most about other languages like German and Spanish is their ability to wrap up so much meaning in a single word.
Right.
Oh, especially German.
Yeah. Now, it's commonly said that Eskimos had nearly 50 words for snow, each with a distinctive meaning. And
I don't actually know that. I don't think that that's true. I think that's just a saying.
I looked it up for this.
Okay,
It's like,
all
I think
right.
it's 47 different words for snow.
Okay.
In Seattle, they can say it's raining 48 different ways.
but they can't.
Right.
English surely has some overly specific words too, but we don't typically use these vocabulary words, instead opting to simplify our speech. So let's take a look at some of the more specific words in the English lexicon that we would
abbreviate, sadly.
that we would be hard pressed to fit into our daily conversation.
Lexicon. That was a pretty good one right there.
Yeah.
And that's German.
Lexicon.
Lexicon.
I think we steal a lot of our words, and you'll find on this list most of these are Germanic or Roman.
You're saying we're a hodgepodge of language?
From Latin and French.
Right. All right, our first word, roarback. Roorback. Any guesses?
Roarback. From back
like
up in a valley somewhere?
That sounds like a position on a sports team.
Yeah. No, this is a
Recliner.
defamatory falsehood published for political effect.
Oh,
It's
like
mud-
mudslinging.
or mud
Mudslinging,
raking. Yeah.
yeah.
mud
Yeah.
raking.
Roarback.
So
that's a good word.
this word came from someone's name. Now, however, this person's name is fictitious. This was Roarback, I think it was Baron von Rohrback, was an invented person who served as the source of a particularly unpleasant rumor about presidential candidate James K. Polk back in 1844.
Wow.
So
So
inevitably
they invented somebody to cite,
right.
is what it is.
Right. And so now we use Roarback as an example of falsehoods that are just fake news. Fake
Okay.
news is, kind of our
Political
common term
fake
for
news,
it.
yeah,
Right.
or
right.
mudslinging fake news. Okay,
Roarback. Okay.
All
That's
right.
interesting.
Now our next word, ultra-crepidarian.
Well, okay, I got ultra.
Ultra-crepidarian.
I can wrap my brain around ultra, but what is it? Ultra
Ultra-crepidarian.
Oh, crepidarian.
crep, not crap.
So
Crepidarian.
not a cartoon
Also-
story hero or anything.
No. This is
No
something.
animatronics.
This is a. Well, I'm blanking on whether or not noun, verb. I would guess noun. This is something that I have been known to do. Giving opinions on matters beyond one's knowledge.
Oh, well, okay.
That's a verb, not a noun. That's a
Verb. Excuse me.
It's a doing
That's
word.
an action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am.
Giving opinions.
I am an ultra-crepidarian, or I am ultra-crepidarian.
Oh, that's interesting.
You see, well,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
I am
Yeah,
ultra
that's-
crepidarian. Yeah.
So-
It could be
but
either.
it's-
Yeah. I guess you could
Say it
be.
again. It's giving
Ultra-
opinion.
giving opinions on matters beyond one's knowledge. So
Oh,
we,
I know
we
a lot of
all
people
know
like that.
people like that. And
Yes.
again, I've been
Yeah.
guilty of
So
it.
for those of you not being able to see in the studio, there's a couple of us with our hands raised going, yeah, I do that.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
okay, and that was me at the
Guilty.
beginning going, yeah, that 50 words for snow, that's just not true.
There we go. Hey.
Did I sound authoritative?
Yeah, I think that's.
All right. Now, word number 3, antithalian. ANTITHALIAN.
Oh, I don't. Okay.
Hmm.
I got,
I'm afraid to guess on this one.
I got anti.
Opposed to festivities.
Oh, that's just
Oh.
sad.
Okay.
Now, like I could see like like introvertedness kind of coincides with anti-Thalian, but I think this is more specific.
Like the Grinch.
Yeah, like the Grinch.
Yeah.
Or Mrs. Umbridge.
Miss Umbridge, yeah,
Miss
Dolores.
Umbridge, Dolores Umbridge of Harry Potter.
I could see that.
Like, okay.
So, yeah, we all know someone for whom this word is appropriate, I'm sure.
Bah, humbug.
This next one I think sounds like a medication. It's Novercal. Navercal. I could very easily see a pharmaceutical advertisement about it.
Which, okay, let's just take a moment and say that some of the names for pharmaceuticals that have come out of the boardroom are just ridiculous.
Yeah. Now, this is of or relating to or characteristic of a stepmother.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so so say it again. What is the word?
Novercal.
Novercal. Do you have the etymology?
No, I don't. Now, English appears to not have a corresponding word for characteristics of a stepfather. Right. So we have, Novercal being, characteristics of a stepmother, but we don't have its stepfather
like
equal.
from Cinderella.
So all those fairy tales have the evil stepmom
is a Novercal.
Is a Novercal.
Okay.
Now, this next one is more of a phrase, an idiom, I guess. Job's comforter.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's a biblical. That's a biblical thing.
Tell you, why don't you just give up?
Yeah, just give up. Just curse God and give up. That's right.
Yeah, this is a person who discourages or depresses while seemingly giving comfort and consolation.
Right.
Now, it comes from the friends of Job at the tail end of that book of the Bible that are trying to console Job, but failing miserably.
Yeah, telling him to just curse God and die. Yeah. Just die. Just give it up.
Well, and I think, I don't even know that they were doing that so much as just telling him like your sins may have caused this.
Well, they started out that way, but at the end when he had all the boils, he had all this stuff.
Just throw up your hands and
just die God. Already.
Right. So
why are you still here, dude?
This next one, I'm very glad that I have a wife that suffers from this. It is maritality.
Married to Sam.
Married to Sam, yes.
Okay.
Maritality. That sounds like the opposite to
mortality.
It sounds like somebody that's prone to merriment.
Yeah, so this is excessive fondness of a wife for her husband.
Oh,
nice.
Oh, very nice.
Nice.
My wife suffers terribly from this.
She does, and I love that about her.
Yeah, I love it for me too. So
we prayed for her for a long time.
Still pray for that poor woman. So the next one, snickersnee.
Snickersnee is snee S-N-E-E.
Mm-hmm.
Snickersnee. Is it a noun?
Person who doesn't laugh.
This is a verb.
Person who doesn't like Snickers.
No, so it's to like snickersnee.
Know,
it's
right?
something
That's
that you
wrong.
do.
Mm-hmm.
We're going snickersneeing.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's funny that
hiking
it
through
sounds
the marsh?
so funny because it is to engage in cut and thrust fighting with knives.
Snickersnee.
Wow.
Yeah.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
Yeah, and I guess I think I feel the same way
Is your
about
finger?
tussle, like getting in a tussle.
Okay.
Like that sounds funny to me. But it can also be described, or it can also define a large knife, just in general. But
snickersnee.
But the act of snickersneeing is to engage in fighting with knives.
Okay, cooking's never going to be the same for me. Like, get out of here! I'm snickersneeing right now.
Snickersneeing the chicken. So this, I actually included this one for you, Mom. This is doodle sack.
Oh, Lord.
Doodle sack.
Okay.
Oh, no.
That sounds.
I bet if you thought hard enough about this one, you could figure it out.
Doodle sack. So is it a noun?
For your sewing kit?
Yes, this is a noun.
It sounds like
a sketch pad.
No, it's like a Snuggie that you put on when you're going to sit down and just draw.
This is another word for bagpipes.
Doodle
sack.
Doodle sack.
And I love that imagery, like being able to draw with an instrument.
Right.
This is a sack with which I doodle.
I do love bagpipes. So
what about gubbins?
Gubbins, Gubbins.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cute little name.
The gubbins are a bunch of unimportant stuff that is probably cluttering up your desk right now.
Right inside your doodle sack.
I got it.
Yeah. My doodle sack is one of my many gubbins.
Yeah.
I got a lot of gubbins.
I'm going to have a really hard time pronouncing this next one.
Oh, just get in line. So do we.
Yeah,
it's just regular words.
It's what we do.
Quomodo conquising.
Quomodo That sounds like Quasimodo.
I was going to say it sounds like
Yeah.
a bad guy. And
No, Quasimodo was the good
I know,
guy. But
Quamodo conquising.
Okay.
This is said to mean something that makes money in any possible way.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So today,
Okay, whatever.
Quamodo conquising is mostly found in lists of the Internet of Strange Words in English. That is the only usefulness that word still poses to this day.
But
Wow.
so somebody or some way of making
It is-
money
yeah,
in every
it is
any.
something.
Any
It
kind
is
of way.
any fiscally driven venture.
Okay.
Now, this next one, Spangu, also one that is hard to pronounce. It's Spanghew.
Oh, that's
Spangu.
okay.
To throw violently into the air, especially to throw a frog into the air from the end of a stick.
Was that in Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn?
I don't know.
Oh, who does that?
I don't know. I don't know who
boys,
found themselves
that's who does
The
that.
swamp people over in
situation and-
Louisiana, maybe. I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
like being in that situation and thinking, man, this needs its own word. This is
Well, it
this is a
does.
moment.
So
Get off
say
my
the word
stick.
one more
Get off my
time.
fishing rod.
Spangu.
Spank you. I'm going to spank you
Spangu
if you don't get out of here.
Toss you from the end of a stick. Yeah.
That's like a
so
frog.
We'll end on a somewhat dark note. This is neighbor stained.
Okay, neighbor,
stain.
like, won't you be my neighbor?
Uh-huh.
Stained,
Stained.
like stained.
It's a rock you threw at your neighbor?
Yes,
Close.
Oh, mercy.
It's like the wet spot in your driveway when your neighbor won't get out of the way.
It's the chalk outline now on their driveway.
Their old Chevy.
After you threw a rock at them.
This is an adjective. This is to be stained with the blood of neighbors.
Yeah.
Oh,
Degree, the way that these are formatted, you have definition, degree of usefulness, and then an example. Under degree of usefulness, this just says, let's hope not. So there we go. I got my info from merriam-webster.com and uxwritinghub.com.
Nice.
thank you. Well, now, not too far from the Milton Bradley Company in Springfield, we find the famous city of Salem, Massachusetts.
Oh, yeah, Salem.
Mostly known for those witch trials that back in the late 1600s, Salem also has a more positive claim to fame.
Oh, okay.
In 1883, a bored teenager named George Parker was playing a game called Everlasting, which was designed to teach moral lessons to young people.
Uh-huh.
George thought the game was dumb.
Everlasting.
He began to think of ways to improve the game and make it more fun. He devised a set of printed cards and wrote out detailed rules, and he called his new game Banking.
Okay.
Banking was a game in which players borrow money from the bank and try to generate wealth by guessing how well they could do.
Okay.
This game included 160 cards, which foretell the player's failure or success.
Okay.
George and his brothers and their friends enjoyed playing Banking so much that he scraped together $40 and had 500 copies of the game printed. He sold the games to Boston area retailers and made a profit of nearly $100.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Wow.
So, encouraged by this, our 16-year-old bored teenager established the George Parker Company and set about manufacturing banking in larger quantities. 5 years later, in 1888, his brother Charles joined the firm as its business manager, and the company name was changed to Parker Brothers.
Parker Brothers, yeah.
A third brother, Edward, joined in 1898. This afforded George the time to develop new games.
All right, cool.
The earliest Parker Brothers games had a definite New England feel, with names like Billy Bumps Goes to Boston and the Yale-Harvard game.
Well, that sounds fun.
Then in the 1890s, Parker Brothers began reaching out to a more national audience with games that were based on current events. The Alaska Gold Rush in 1893 led to a popular game called Klondike.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I do. I remember that one.
Yeah, I do
remember seeing that
too.
one.
Klondike, yeah.
Then the Spanish-American War in 1898 fostered a game called War in Cuba.
I don't think I've ever seen that one.
I
I don't know how popular that one was.
Yeah, I don't know that I would buy that one. In 1906, Parker Brothers developed a game called Rook. This game utilized a special set of playing cards different from the typical deck of cards, which they developed somewhat of a negative image due to their association with gambling.
Right.
I know that I've had family members that thought they were the most evil thing. And
Yeah.
I never.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more
I
when we
played
get to the
Rook
card
a lot
games.
with
Yeah.
my grandmother.
Yeah.
It was one of her favorite games.
Well, Rook became the best-selling game in the country in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, way to go, Parker Brothers. Well, now, meanwhile,
If you're looking for if you're looking to sponsor a
Parker
podcast-
Brothers.
yes,
Hasbro,
I'm
yeah.
bringing it up
I'm rolling my eyes, guys.
constantly.
Well, along this same time, according to an article in TheGuardian.com, an obscure woman named Elizabeth Magee, who lived just outside of Washington, D.C., was becoming frustrated with the nature of greedy, capitalistic land grabbers.
No.
She was looking for an outlet to share her left-leaning socialist views with a larger audience. As board games were so popular at the time, Lizzie, as her friends called her, put her mind to developing a game that would expose the nature of the money-grubbing land barons. In 1903, she received a patent for the landlord game.
I think I know where this is going.
I do too.
It's a practical demonstration. This is a quote from her. She says, it is a practical demonstration of the present system of land grabbing with all its usual outcomes and consequences, she wrote in a political magazine.
That's right. Take it.
Lizzie's game featured play money and deeds and properties that could be bought and sold. Players borrowed money either from the bank or from each other, and they had to pay taxes. It also had a poorhouse and a space that has become very well known, saying, go to jail.
Can you guess it now, folks?
The landlord game became popular with left-leaning intellectuals, and over the next 3 decades, this is the early 1900s again, it was a fixture on many college campuses. It also became popular with a community of Quakers in Atlantic City, New Jersey, who customized versions of the game with local neighborhoods. And one of these versions found its way into the hands of a man named Charles Darrow. One night in 1932, Darrow and his wife Esther were invited to dinner at the home of their friends Charles and Olivia Todd. Afterward, the Todds introduced the Darrows to the landlord game. Charles Darrow was transfixed. He couldn't get the game out of his mind. Now, by this point in the story of the landlord game, it wasn't sold in boxes anymore, but it was sort of passed along from friend to friend. While Lizzie Magee had originally included a set of rules, those had either been lost or modified by each community of players, as happens when you go play games. What are the local house rules of this that we're going to play, right? Charles Darrow was an unemployed engineer at the time and was desperate to find a way to support his family. He decided to do a refresh of the landlord game with a codified set of rules and a bright and colorful game board. He approached Parker Brothers with the idea in 1934, and they loved it. The name was changed to Monopoly and has since sold hundreds of millions of copies worldwide. And Charles Darrow became a multimillionaire on the royalties that he received from the sales of the game.
And the multiple versions.
That's right. So we have Conroe-opoly, with Conroe being the city that we're in right this minute.
We're next to Cut and Shoot.
Yeah, next to Cut and Shoot.
Yeah, you can get your own town's version of Monopoly just about.
They just don't make one for Cut and Shoot.
Oh, well, what about poor Lizzie Magee, the one who invented the landlord game back 30 years before? Well, when Monopoly started to take off, Parker Brothers paid Lizzie $500 for the patent to the landlord game, but no royalties. Of course, in 1935, $500 was still a lot of money, equal to about $11,400 today. And at first, Lizzie was overjoyed. But then it began to dawn on her that Charles Darrow and Parker Brothers were making a fortune on her idea. She angrily protested in an interview with the Washington Post, but as she had already sold the rights to her patent, there was nothing that she could do.
Yep.
It's really quite an ironic twist that the woman who invented a game to expose the evils of capitalism was herself caught up in a controversy over the overwhelming success of a capitalistic game based on her idea.
Right, because the way Monopoly is now, it's very much the opposite of what she intended it to be.
Exactly.
Right. It's like, oh, yeah.
It celebrates capitalism, doesn't
and
it?
do you guys enjoy Monopoly? Like,
as a kid, I would enjoy it.
I played it so much as a kid, but now it's like you get halfway through the game, and you already know who the winner is, and the other half of the game is just torture.
You're losing your money to that who is winning.
That's right, and it takes forever.
Yes.
You can alter the versions. You can deal out some of the cards first, and then speed it up a little bit.
Right. Well, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Monopoly, but I do love this next story about it.
Right.
In the decade after Parker Brothers first introduced the game, Monopoly actually had a real-life role in helping some folks get out of jail free. And it's funny because I use that on my kids. Go to jail, go directly to jail, do not pass go. Go to your room, go directly to your... Anyway. Articles from abcnews.com and owlcation.com, that's O-W-L-cation,
Right.
.com detail how monopoly boards were used to help Allied prisoners of war escape from the Nazis.
Yeah.
Large numbers of British and later American airmen were shot down while conducting bombing raids over Germany and German-held territory. The POW camps were nowhere near as horrid as the slave labor camps and concentration camps where the Nazis killed millions. By and large, the Germans treated Allied prisoners humanely.
Right.
Part of this humane treatment allowed them to receive care packages from the Red Cross and other relief agencies. These packages contained food, clothing, medical supplies, and in some cases, leisure entertainment like books and games.
Yeah.
M19 was the British Secret Service agency charged with aiding Allied prisoners with the means to escape. They cooperated with a British company called John Waddington Limited to print maps on silk. And it just so happened that the John Waddington Company was also the British licensee for the Parker Brothers game Monopoly.
Right.
So together, M19 and John Waddington Limited created silk escape maps that fit perfectly beneath the glued-on paper facing of the Monopoly board. Some parts of the board were even hollowed out so that they could contain small metal files, saws, and compasses.
Cool.
Oh, wow.
In addition, local currencies were hidden under the Monopoly money.
Oh, so they put in some German money or some local money underneath the Monopoly money.
And some sets even contained tokens made of pure gold so that escaping prisoners could use them to pay for assistance and supplies during their escapes.
I wonder if some of those original gold pieces still exist
Right, that-
somewhere
That
in
would
Europe.
be, that would be really
That would
neat.
be cool.
If you have any, post it to our social media.
that's right.
That'd be kinda cool to see.
Yes. Before leaving England, the airmen were told to look for Monopoly boards if they were taken captive. To protect the Red Cross from falling under suspicion, M19 created phony relief agencies.
Right. I think they didn't want the Red Cross to be blamed for anything
That's
if they were
right.
caught. If they were caught, because the Red Cross provided services that were too vital to endanger.
yeah.
That's right, to
exactly.
hold.
Yeah.
One of these phony agencies was called the Prisoners' Leisure Hours Fund.
If somebody calls you wanting you to donate to the Prisoners' Leisure Hours Fund, no, that's fake.
Oh,
But at first, legitimate relief supplies were channeled to the POW camps in Germany. When these initial shipments passed through without raising the interest of the guards, the altar packages were then slipped in.
Neat.
It's believed that over 700 prisoners escaped from German POW camps and made their way back to England using the altered Monopoly sets.
Oh, that's a pretty
Oh,
good
that is pretty
number.
Isn't that cool?
That's way cool. Well, now speaking of World War II, another popular game developed during the war. A British museum and factory worker named Anthony Pratt was holed up in his home in Birmingham, England during the air raids. Seeing as he had some time on his hand, Pratt began musing about the murder mystery parlor games that were popular in his parents' generation. He was also fond of the murder mystery books by Agatha Christie and others. He and his wife began to map out an idea for a game involving a mystery in a mansion. It is said that his wife designed the playing board based on a nearby location called the Tudor Close Hotel in Rottingdean, England. Once he had formalized a set of rules, Pratt applied for and finally received a patent in 1947. He then approached none other than John Waddington Limited, who enthusiastically purchased the rights to the game and selected the name Cluedo, which was a play on the Latin word ludo, which means I play. In 1949, Parker Brothers purchased the rights to distribute the game in North America, and they changed the name to Clue. Yeah. At first, they marketed it as the Great Sherlock Holmes Detective Game. Over the years, they have adapted the title to where it now reads the Great Classic Detective Game. Today, Clue, or Cluedo, as it's still called in England, is the second most popular game in the world behind Monopoly. Wow. It has sold over 150 million sets. It was also the inspiration for the Clue movie, which was released in 1985 and had 3 different endings.
Yes, it
and we'll
did.
talk more about the Clue movie toward the end of this episode. Well, back to Parker Brothers. George Parker, the original bored teenager, he died in 1952, but the company was still operated by his family until 1968, when they were purchased by General Foods. Other popular games produced by Parker Brothers include Tiddlywinks, Sorry,
Yeah, I had that one. That was a good game.
Right.
We still play that one.
right? Scrabble,
Yeah.
yeah, love Scrabble, and Risk.
Yes, I played a lot
Now,
of that one.
okay, and Risk takes hours
Forever.
and hours.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
But it's a cool game.
It is cool. Actually, we have the Milton Bradley version of Scrabble, which is called Upwards. It's a three-dimensional word game.
I think I've played that too.
Yeah, I like that one. They also helped to popularize ping pong in the United States. This, again, talking about the Parker brothers. After George Parker saw the game being played on one of his trips to Europe. So they began marketing ping pong paddles and ping pong tables and so forth. Well, like their old rival, Milton Bradley, Parker Brothers is also owned by the Hasbro Toy Company, but their games are still being manufactured today under the Hasbro name. We have been doing Remnant Stew podcasts for several years now, and we love our listeners. And it's our passion to share crazy and bizarre stories with you. Our continuing goal, however, is to increase our listenership and share our stories with an even larger number of people.
That's right, but growing a podcast audience takes a lot of time and energy. That's where you can help us out. Studies have shown that overwhelmingly, word of mouth is the best promotion tool for the growth of a podcast.
That's right.
So we're asking you to please share Remnant Stew with your friends. Pick out a
Please.
favorite episode and pass it along.
Right.
We would really appreciate it. And thanks so much already for the support that you've given us. We love you guys.
We really do.
Very much so.
Well, now let's talk a bit about playing cards.
Okay.
I played
look at
cards when I was a kid.
And
So
Me too.
now we
much.
move on.
I wish I had a deck. I would shuffle them right now.
Most historians agree that a form of playing cards developed in China about 1,000 years ago. It appears that traders on the Silk Road brought the concept of playing cards with them to the Middle East.
You know, the Silk Road traders, they were bringing a lot of things other than silk.
It really opened the
chess
world.
and now playing cards. Yeah, all kinds
Well,
of
it
things.
opened the world. It connected people in a way
Right.
that
Had
didn't
never-
exist before. That's
Yep.
right. By 1360, playing cards with 4 distinct suits were known to exist in Egypt. The 4 suits on the Egyptian cards, though, were goblets, gold coins, swords, and polo mallets.
Okay.
From Egypt, the cards spread across northern Africa and then to southern Europe. Even today, traditional playing cards in Italy and Spain depict batons, swords, cups, and coins.
Okay.
The French are responsible for the suits we have today, as
No.
batons became clubs, swords became spades, coins became diamonds, and the cups became hearts.
Nice.
By the 1400s, playing cards were found throughout Europe, but were expensive and usually only owned by the wealthier class. It's because each set had to be hand-painted.
Oh, yeah.
And that
took
all
some time.
changed, though, with the advent of woodblock printing, which made mass production possible.
Mm-hmm.
By the 1500s, card playing became a widespread leisure activity. The library at New York University contains a large collection of historic playing card sets. Their website, nyu.edu, states that in the 1700s, French playing cards depicted their kings and queens clothed in splendid regalia. But after the French Revolution in 1789, the monarchs were replaced with figures representing egalitarian ideals like equality, brotherhood, and liberty.
Also, you'd have the equality of hearts or the brotherhood of spades instead of the king and queen. That sounds kind of strange.
Yeah.
Oh, go with the joke.
The liberty of diamonds. Okay, I got that one. Yeah.
Now, you history buffs might recall the Boston Tea Party in 1773 when
of it.
enraged American colonists stormed into a British ship and dumped the tea cargo into the harbor. One of the things that had angered the Yankees was that the British had placed a large tax on imported playing cards.
Ooh, don't mess with our cards.
Yeah.
At the time, there was no manufacturers of playing cards in North America, and they were imported from England. Of course, other items were taxed also, but it gives us some insight into the popularity of card playing in the colonies.
Right, so yeah, no taxing our cards without representation.
No wonder there was a problem with them. Gambling.
Well, the idea of playing cards just for fun is really a fairly recent development. Most early card games were played for money. The advent of affordable decks of playing cards led to a rise in gambling across all segments of society, from the wealthy to the poor. Indeed, for most of its history, card playing has been a means to riches or to ruin, usually to ruin, for those who could not resist one more turn at the table. I'm familiar with an enormous ranch up in the Texas Panhandle that's called the Four Sixes. I had a cousin that used to work for that ranch. And legend has it that this listen how big this ranch is, 260,000 acres. That's like 260,000 football fields. That's how big this place is.
That's a lot of fence.
Big,
That's a lot of fence.
big ranch. Anyway, the legend has it that it was won in a poker game with 4 sixes being the winning hand. Now, their website claims that the legend is not true, but nevertheless, we're familiar with the image of riverboat gamblers or shady card games being played in an Old West saloon.
Yeah.
Well, along with the rise of gambling, playing cards became popular tools of magicians and fortune tellers in the 1800s. Dexterous card dealers, no doubt, learned how to manipulate cards in such a way that would guarantee a favorable outcome for themselves, but getting caught while, quote, dealing off the bottom of the deck could have potential disastrous results.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Quickly drawn pistol, and that would be the end of you. So many card dealers found a profitable and safer way to utilize their skill by performing magic tricks. And also fortune tellers had long used tarot cards to help perform their acts of divination. It was an easy conversion for them to substitute an ordinary deck of playing cards to enact or to apply their fabled craft. Now, the association of playing cards with gambling and magic led to many social and religious organizations shunning their use. We were touching on this a little bit earlier. Carrie Nation, the late 19th century temperance movement, not only fought against the evils of alcohol, but also of gambling establishments. She would take her Hatchet. Her name was Hatchet Granny, right?
She was the morality police.
Yes.
Yes.
She would bust up a card game with her hatchet as well as a saloon. In the first half of the 1900s, Baptist ministers in Texas and throughout the South referred to playing cards as, quote, the tools of the devil. Now, church folk would play dominoes for hours on end, but playing cards was strongly frowned upon. Now, you might be curious as to what the oldest known card game is. According to a website called oldest.com, and why wouldn't we believe them, whether they should know, a German game called Karnoffel, Karnoffel, is known to date to 1426. Hey, we're coming up on the 600th anniversary of Karnoffel here in a couple of years. And it's actually still played in Bavaria today. I bet they're going to have a big tournament in a couple of years for the Karnoffel Centennial.
Is it in October?
Probably, yeah, that would be a good time to figure it out. Some other games that you might be familiar with are also quite old. Blackjack, or 21, was referenced in Cervantes' Don Quixote, which was written in the year 1700, so the game is at least that old.
Wow.
Whist, which is a forerunner of bridge, was developed in France in the 1760s. Euchre is spelled E-U-C-H-R-E, but it's pronounced like U-K-E-R. It emerged in the early 1800s, and it was actually a favorite of those Mississippi riverboat gamblers.
Mm-hmm.
Poker was invented in New Orleans in 1829, and gin rummy emerged in America around 1900. These are the oldest known card games that are known to exist.
That's
and
amazing.
I have played so many gin rummy games.
Yeah, me too. The variations of gin rummy.
Right.
No, mine was always Rook.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I played that one quite a bit. Or, its opposite is Hearts. So
Now, here's a few playing card fun facts that we will throw in here at the end of this section. The longest continuously played poker game occurred at the Birdcage Theater in Tombstone, Arizona. It began in 1881 and lasted for 8 years and 5 months. So it's a long game.
wow.
The United States
couldn't read them to see who's bluffing. Got it.
The United States Playing Card Company of Erlanger, Kentucky. Oh, there's your old home state of Kentucky.
That's right.
They produce over 100 million decks of cards per year, and these include the famous Bicycle brand. And by the way, those were also used during World War II to hide maps, similar to the Monopoly board that we mentioned earlier.
Hey.
Wow.
Casinos in Las Vegas generally toss out a deck of cards from use after 1 hour of play. This is due to the fact that players may tend to try to mark cards with bins or smudges. And the most popular card game in the world? Solitaire.
Well, as we mentioned earlier, Clue is the second most popular board game in the world, and I love Clue.
Right.
Only behind Monopoly, and it is inspired a popular 1985 movie. The movie didn't do particularly well at the box office because people were confused by the 3 endings.
I remember this. Wait a minute.
They didn't know which theater to go to. But
Which made it so much more fun.
but Clue the movie has enjoyed a long and happy life in home theaters.
Yeah, you can get when you buy it on the DVD set, you get all 3 endings to
Oh,
it.
wow. So the movie does a terrific job of balancing mystery and folly. And I personally have never seen it, but looking at the cast,
You've never seen this movie?
I've never
Oh
seen
my
it.
gosh, movie night.
Oh my
Madeline
goodness.
Kahn,
Yeah.
Tim Curry, Christopher
Yes.
Lloyd. Like I
was
looked at the cast
awesome.
and I haven't seen it, but I think I need to. I think I'm
Christopher
gonna have
Lloyd,
to
yeah.
What
make
is,
time
okay,
for it.
Lamp Boys, what have you been doing?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Now they may have seen it, but I haven't.
Hello, if they haven't shown you yet.
It's,
But have
it's
you
fun.
seen-
It's a fun movie.
Have you seen the movie Knives Out?
Knives
Yes.
Out, yeah.
2019 movie Knives Out.
That and the second one.
That is it. It was based off of the movie Clue.
Right.
Yep.
Now I have seen that and I liked that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, and we're talking about games and popular culture, by the way.
right.
The extended popularity of the movie Clue inspired other movies that took their inspiration from games. So let's see if you've seen these. A few of these include Candyland, The Great Lollipop Adventure.
That one missed me somehow. I don't know.
2005.
I don't
we
know how
need a
that one
movie
get by
night
me.
where
I
I
don't know. I
skipped
love
that one.
Yeah, I did
Candyland back
too.
in the
Tim Curry
day.
wasn't in it.
And then Under the Boardwalk, The Monopoly Story in
Yes.
2012. Did you saw that? Did you see
I
it?
didn't see it, no.
He's just looking at me.
Phil didn't want to admit that he's
watch
seen it.
something?
Battleship in 2012.
Yes. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
Ouija, Origin of Evil,
Yeah, the
2016,
Ouija board.
Ouija board.
Well,
And
I
I
haven't seen
should
that.
I should say here that I fully intended to get into the weird history of the Ouija board, but we just ran out of time.
Right.
And it's not really a board game
Yeah.
per se,
No,
even
no,
though it's
it's-
produced by board game makers. We'll discuss it at some point, though.
Hmm.
But none of these game-inspired movies achieved the popularity of Clue.
No,
that was
no,
kind of
no.
the
Because
best
they didn't
one,
have
yeah.
Tim Curry.
No, exactly.
So, but that doesn't mean that board games don't show up in movies and TV.
Oh, that's all over the place.
Yeah.
A website called BoardGameGeek.com
Which is a great website.
That's
great
awesome.
website. It lists several occurrences of some of your favorite games showing up on either the big screen or in television. Here are some of our favorites. On one of my all-time favorite shows, The Carol Burnett Show, during the Mama's Family sketch,
Yeah.
board games made a frequent appearance. In one
Well,
episode,
that's where we all would play our games. during
that's right. And my personal game play theory is if you're not willing to lose all your relationships over this, you're not playing.
You're not
it
really
right.
playing. Yeah.
And so and that's how Mama's Family plays
Right.
We're all
it. Like you-
expendable,
There
folks.
it
yeah,
is. All-
we can we flip this table?
Yeah.
And I thought about putting in part of the sketch, but it gets a little like she cusses a little bit. Anyway, so look it up. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
But they play, or they end up in a huge fight.
The Monopoly because she thinks she's finally Eunice is going to finally win
And
for the
then-
first time ever, and then they want to quit.
Yeah, we're all done.
And then in another game, I watched this clip today. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
They were playing Sorry. So Eunice and Ed shouts, slide, slide, slide.
Slide, slide, slide.
Sorry.
And they ring the little bell. Sorry.
Yeah, apparently the game had a bell in it at some point. It doesn't now, but that would drive me nuts. And so, there's a whole other fight that breaks out due to that. And Mama never wanted to play in the first place. She's just bored. She's complaining the whole time.
I'm glad that's over.
Anyway, board games also were featured on The Simpsons.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
In one episode, the family is playing Scrabble, and Homer draws the letters OXIDIZE, so he could oxidize, but he plays the word id, quote, as in stoop id.
Stupid.
He explains. And I just have to say that in the Scrabble dictionary, id is a word.
It is a word.
It is a
yeah.
word.
It's a word in psychology coined by Freud and defined as, quote, the part of the mind in which innate instinctive impulses and primary processes are manifest. So it's the primitive part of the psyche. So it's appropriate that it's linked to Homer
And
Simpson.
to stupid. Got it.
Stupid.
Stoop
He could have
id.
played 7 letters, but he played 2.
2. That's all you need.
Then for Christmas one year, Lisa wanted a Hungry Hungry Hippos game.
Okay.
But Homer presented her with a cheap knockoff
oh, no.
called Ravenous Rhinos.
Oh, boy.
In another episode, Homer tries to teach the family to play Scrabble Ship. Lisa says, quote, I don't understand the rules. I wonder why. Scrabble Ship. Okay, now get this. Remember the TV show Happy Days?
Yeah.
Yes.
It was aired in the 70s, but it was set in the 1950s and 60s era America. The show inspired a board game also called Happy Days and was featured in an episode of the popular 90s era TV show Friends. Is that enough of a cultural mishmash?
Yeah, let's bring it forward.
So on a beach trip in Friends, Ross and his girlfriend were going to play strip poker, but they couldn't find any cards, so they played strip Happy Days instead.
Well, you're desperate, I guess.
Okay.
Oh, and we could go on and on and on about all the games showing up in places, but chess, of course, has been featured in several prominent movies. Among our favorites are Searching for Bobby Fischer
I love that
in
movie. That's a good
1993.
movie.
Yeah.
Brooklyn Castle of 2012, and then 2019 Netflix series Queen's Gambit.
The Queen's Gambit was great. I love that series. That was really great.
And we can't forget the original Star Trek, where Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock enjoy playing a tri-dimensional or 3D chess.
That's all over the Star Trek series.
And then we also have to say there's wizarding chess, played by Ron in the Harry Potter series.
Right.
Yep.
So.
Well, it's interesting that.
No.
Oh, you got some more.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Now, before we wrap this up, I have to tell you about my all-time favorite game. It's a card game called Set, and you can play by yourself or with up to 4 players. The deck consists of 81 unique cards that vary in 4 features across 3 possibilities, and I could go on and on, but it's really hard to explain in audio without you seeing it. But you look for sets in the cards, and it's very fast-paced and cutthroat if you're playing it right.
Right.
But
lamp style.
And I have played this game for decades. I have played it in hospital rooms, in the car. I mean, on Bourbon Street in New Orleans.
Camps, you name it.
and you can teach kids to play it. Kids can play it. The game has an interesting origin, though.
No.
It evolved out of a coding system that the designer, Marcia Falco, used in her job as a geneticist. Falco was working in Cambridge, England in 1974, studying epilepsy in German Shepherd dogs, specifically trying to see if it was if there was a genetic connection to it. She was using an index card for each dog where she wrote their information down using her own set of symbols for recurring blocks of data. So instead of writing the data over and over again, she just came up with her own symbols in it.
Shorthand.
Shorthand. The veterinarians Falco was working with saw her cards with all the symbols, and then they started seeing patterns. And it occurred to Falco that someone might have fun with this. So apart from her research with dogs, she developed the game of Set for her own amusement and played it with her family and friends for about 20 years, making adjustments and changes as needed. Well, Falco's kids enjoyed it so much they encouraged her to put the game in stores in 1991. That same year, it won the Mensa Select Seal and has become a popular game since, and is often found in grade school classrooms.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
That is pretty awesome.
It's my all-time favorite game. I play it at least once a week. We have game night once a week, and we're sure to play it.
Well, this has been a fun episode about games. It's interesting that though almost all aspects of our lives today rely on technology, the board game is experiencing a renaissance.
Yes,
According to researchers at the University of Pittsburgh at pitt.edu, board games are making a huge resurgence in popularity among all age ranges. Zach Horton, an associate professor at Pitt, relates the rise in popularity of board games with the emergence of the smartphone. Quote, "The interest in board games is a retaliation against the ubiquity of digital media. People are looking for more engaged in social activities as they become more isolated by technology," said Horton. Quote, "People crave that social connection, which makes this genre completely different from social media or video games."
That's right.
So everybody, let's put down that phone and break out the board game. I'll be the banker.
Bill here reminding you to check out our Facebook and Instagram pages at Remnant Stew Podcast. Drop us an email. Stay curious at remnantstew.com just to say hi or to let us know about any topics you would like to hear us cover in an upcoming episode.
Remnant Stew is a part of Rook and Raven Ventures and is created by me, Leah Lamp. Steve Meeker researches and writes each episode that we then host together. Our audio producer is Philip Sinkfeld. The oddity du jour is brought to you by Sam Lamp. Theme music is by Kevin MacLeod with voiceover by Morgan Hughes. Special thanks goes out to Judy Meeker.
Yes.
For a complete list of sources in this episode, please see the episode's transcript, and there's a link there in the show notes.
Now, before you go, please hit the follow button so you won't miss an episode. Head on over to Apple Music and leave us a review. We love reading those reviews. Share Remnant Stew with your friends, your family, Milton Bradley and the Parker Brothers if you run into them. Until next time, remember to choose to be kind and always stay curious.
Now, do you want to put this with that?
At first, he found success. Let me read that one again. We have too much suck and not enough cess here. I'm sorry. Oh, that was going to stay in too. Isn't
No, because I can't help it.
Okay, but write that down as a blooper. We want to play that on the last episode. Yeah.